What if one of the most powerful foods for healthy aging isn't an exotic superfood from a remote mountain, an expensive supplement, or a breakthrough drug, but something sitting in grocery stores around the world? Research over the last 2 decades has uncovered something remarkable. Scientists studying some of the longest living populations have repeatedly found that one simple food appears again and again in dietary patterns linked with lower inflammation, healthier blood vessels, better brain function, and longer health span. Even more surprising, its benefits don't come from a single vitamin or nutrient. Instead, it seems to communicate with nearly every major system in the body, from your immune cells and gut bacteria to your metabolism and even the tiny power plants inside your cells known as mitochondria. Yet many people either don't eat enough of it or overlook it entirely. And that's where today's story begins. Because understanding how this food works may completely change the way you think about aging. When most people hear the phrase anti aging, they imagine wrinkles, skin creams, or cosmetic procedures. But scientists who study longevity rarely start there. Instead, they ask a much deeper question. Why do some people reach their 80s and 90s while remaining active, mentally sharp, and physically independent, while others begin struggling with chronic illness decades earlier? Research increasingly suggests that one major difference lies in something largely invisible: inflammation. Now, inflammation isn't automatically bad. In fact, it's essential for survival. When you cut your finger or catch a virus, inflammation helps your immune system respond quickly. It's part of your body's natural repair process. The problem begins when that response never fully switches off. Scientists sometimes describe this as chronic, low-grade inflammation, a quiet, persistent activation of the immune system that continues day after day, year after year. Unlike an obvious injury, you usually don't feel it happening. There may be no pain, no fever, no obvious warning sign, but over time, evidence indicates that this silent inflammation is associated with many of the conditions that become more common with age, including cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, joint problems, and certain forms of cancer. This gradual process has even earned its own scientific nickname, inflammaging. Researchers believe inflammaging may be one of the central biological processes that influences how quickly our bodies age. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. For years, scientists searched primarily for medications capable of reducing chronic inflammation. Then something surprising happened. Large population studies kept pointing toward a different answer. People weren't simply living longer because of medical care. Their daily eating habits appeared to play a major role. Among all the foods repeatedly associated with healthier aging, one category stood out with remarkable consistency: colorful berries. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, and several others. These aren't magical foods, and they certainly aren't a substitute for an overall healthy lifestyle. But research suggests they may offer an impressive combination of naturally occurring compounds that support many of the body's own protective systems. The most interesting part isn't their vitamin C, it isn't their fiber, and it isn't simply that they're lower in calories than many processed snacks. The real story lies inside thousands of tiny plant compounds called polyphenols. These compounds evolved to protect plants from sunlight, insects, environmental stress, and disease. Remarkably, when humans consume them, scientists have observed that they may also interact with important biological pathways involved in inflammation and healthy aging. But researchers didn't discover this overnight. Years ago, berries were mainly appreciated for their nutritional value. Then, laboratory studies began revealing something unexpected. Certain berry compounds appeared capable of influencing cellular signaling. Instead of acting like medicines that force the body to respond in one specific way, they seem to help support the body's own regulatory systems. Imagine your immune system as an orchestra. Inflammation isn't caused by one instrument, it's the result of hundreds of musicians playing together. If only one section becomes too loud, the entire performance changes. Polyphenols don't silence the orchestra. Instead, evidence suggests they may help maintain balance, allowing inflammatory signals to remain appropriately regulated. This distinction is incredibly important because healthy aging isn't about shutting down inflammation completely. It's about maintaining the right amount at the right time. One of the most studied berry compounds is anthocyanin. If you've ever noticed a deep blue, purple, or red colors in berries, you've already seen anthocyanins at work. Researchers have spent years investigating these pigments because they appear to possess powerful antioxidant and anti inflammatory properties. But here's something many people misunderstand. For years, antioxidants were portrayed almost like tiny superheroes racing through the body to neutralize harmful molecules called free radicals. While that's partly true, modern science paints a much more interesting picture. Researchers now believe many plant compounds work less like direct bodyguards and more like skilled coaches. Instead of doing all the work themselves, they may encourage your own cells to activate protective systems that already exist. This concept is one of the biggest shifts in nutrition science over the last decade. Rather than overwhelming the body with external protection, certain foods appear capable of helping the body strengthen its own natural defenses. That may explain why whole foods consistently outperform isolated supplements in many long-term studies. Because foods don't deliver one ingredient, they deliver hundreds of compounds working together. And this is where berries become especially fascinating. Scientists have identified hundreds of bioactive molecules inside them. Some influence inflammation, others appear to support blood vessel function, others may interact with the gut microbiome, some even appear to affect communication between the brain and immune system. No single compound explains all of the observed benefits. Instead, researchers believe it's the combined effect that matters most. But perhaps the most surprising discovery came from studies of the brain. For decades, scientists assumed that age-related cognitive decline was largely unavoidable. Growing older meant slower thinking, poorer memory, less mental flexibility. That was considered normal. Then several long-term observational studies began challenging that assumption. Researchers noticed that adults who regularly consume berries often perform better on certain measures of memory and cognitive function compared with those who consume them less frequently. Now, it's important to emphasize that these studies show associations, not proof of cause and effect. Many healthy habits often occur together. People who eat more berries may also exercise more, sleep better, or consume healthier diets overall. But controlled clinical studies have added another layer to the story. Evidence suggests berry consumption may support aspects of memory, blood flow to the brain, and cognitive performance in certain groups. Scientists believe multiple mechanisms may contribute: reduced oxidative stress, healthier blood vessels, improved communication between neurons, lower levels of chronic inflammation, better metabolic health. Each may contribute a small piece to the puzzle, and together, those small effects could become meaningful over many years. However, that's not the most interesting part, because researchers eventually realized the benefits of berries might not begin in the brain at all. They may begin somewhere completely different, inside your gut. Your digestive system contains trillions of microorganisms, collectively known as the gut microbiome. For years, these microbes were viewed simply as passengers. Today, the scientists increasingly recognize them as active participants in human health. They help digest certain foods, produce beneficial compounds, interact with the immune system, influence metabolism, and even communicate with the brain through what researchers call the gut-brain axis. Here's where berries enter the picture once again. Many berry polyphenols aren't fully absorbed in the upper digestive tract. Instead, they continue traveling into the large intestine. There, gut bacteria begin breaking them down into smaller compounds. In return, those same polyphenols may help nourish populations of beneficial microbes. It's a two-way partnership. Scientists are still uncovering exactly how this relationship works, but evidence suggests it may contribute to healthier immune regulation and reduced inflammation throughout the body. And this leads to another misconception. Many people think healthy eating works like flipping a switch. Eat one healthy meal, become healthier tomorrow. The body doesn't usually operate that way. Healthy aging is more like investing. Small daily decisions accumulate over years. Every serving of nutrient rich foods doesn't transform the body overnight. Instead, they may gradually influence countless tiny biological processes that collectively shape long term health. This idea appears repeatedly in longevity research. The healthiest populations don't rely on miracle foods. They consistently follow dietary patterns rich in fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, whole grains, and other minimally processed foods. Berries simply happen to be one particularly interesting piece of that much larger picture. But researchers later discovered something even more surprising. The potential influence of berries may extend beyond inflammation in the brain. It may reach one of the body's most fundamental systems of all, energy production itself. Every heartbeat, every thought, every movement, every breath, all depend on microscopic structures inside your cells called mitochondria. These tiny organelles convert nutrients into usable cellular energy. As we grow older, mitochondrial efficiency naturally changes. Scientists have observed that reduced mitochondrial function is associated with fatigue, slower recovery, metabolic changes, and many aspects of biological aging. Researchers are now investigating whether certain plant compounds, including those found in berries, may help support healthy mitochondrial function by reducing oxidative stress and influencing cellular signaling pathways involved in energy metabolism. Although this field is still evolving, early findings have generated enormous scientific interest because maintaining healthy mitochondria could have implications across multiple organ systems rather than affecting just one disease. And that changes the conversation entirely. Instead of asking how one food targets one condition, researchers are increasingly asking a broader question. How can daily nutrition support the body's own resilience as we age? That shift from treating illness to supporting long-term biological function may represent one of the most important changes in modern preventive health science. Yet the story doesn't end there, because one of the biggest misconceptions about berries has nothing to do with nutrition. It has everything to do with how much people think they need to eat. Many assume that if a small amount is good, far more must be better, but evidence rarely supports that idea. In nutrition science, more is not always better. Researchers often find that the greatest long-term benefits come from consistency rather than excess. A moderate serving of berries enjoyed regularly as part of an overall balanced eating pattern is likely to be more meaningful than eating very large amounts occasionally while neglecting the rest of your diet. This idea appears repeatedly in studies of long-lived populations around the world. Their diets are rarely built around a single quote-unquote superfood. Instead, they consist of everyday habits repeated over decades. Those habits include eating a wide variety of colorful plant foods, staying physically active, maintaining social connections, sleeping well, and avoiding excessive amounts of highly processed foods. Berries fit naturally into this broader lifestyle because they are nutrient dense, rich in fiber, and packed with naturally occurring plant compounds. But perhaps their greatest strength is that they're practical. Unlike many wellness trends, berries don't require complicated preparation or expensive equipment. They can easily become part of a breakfast, a snack, or even a healthy dessert. Yet researchers uncovered another fascinating piece of the puzzle. Not all inflammation begins in the same place. Scientists have learned that our body's inflammatory response is influenced by many interconnected systems: blood sugar regulation, sleep quality, stress levels, physical activity, body composition, environmental exposures, and nutrition all interact in ways that are far more complex than previously believed. For example, evidence suggests that repeated spikes in blood sugar may contribute to oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling over time. Because berries contain fiber along with naturally occurring sugars, they tend to have a different metabolic effect than many refined sugary foods. Fiber slows digestion, helping create a steadier release of glucose into the bloodstream. This doesn't mean berries are a treatment for blood sugar disorders, nor does it mean everyone responds identically. Individual responses vary depending on genetics, overall diet, activity level, and metabolic health. But research indicates that replacing ultra processed snacks with whole fruits, including berries, may support healthier dietary patterns associated with better metabolic function. And here's where another common myth deserves correction. Some people avoid fruit entirely because they're concerned about sugar. At first glance, that concern may seem reasonable. After all, berries do contain natural sugars. However, whole fruits are fundamentally different from sugar-sweetened beverages or highly refined desserts. Whole berries come packaged with fiber, water, vitamins, minerals, and hundreds of bioactive compounds. This natural combination changes how the body processes them. Numerous dietary studies continue to support the inclusion of whole fruits as part of healthy eating patterns rather than suggesting their routine avoidance. The lesson is an important one. Nutrition isn't just about individual nutrients, it's about the entire food matrix, the way all the natural components work together. And this principle extends beyond berries. Scientists increasingly emphasize dietary patterns over isolated ingredients because our bodies evolved to consume foods, not purified compounds. This brings us to another surprising discovery involving the cardiovascular system. Your blood vessels are lined with an incredibly thin layer of cells called the endothelium. Although only one cell thick, this lining plays an essential role in regulating blood flow, blood pressure, clotting, and communication between the bloodstream and surrounding tissues. When the endothelium functions well, arteries remain more flexible and responsive. When it becomes impaired, cardiovascular risk may gradually increase over many years. Researchers have observed that diets rich in colorful fruits and vegetables, including berries, are associated with healthier endothelial function. Scientists believe this may be partly related to improved production of nitric oxide, a molecule that helps blood vessels relax and expand appropriately. Better circulation doesn't simply affect the heart. It also supports the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to muscles, organs, and the brain. Once again, we see the same theme emerging. One food doesn't influence just one organ. The body's systems are deeply connected. Healthy blood vessels support brain health. Healthy metabolism supports immune function. Healthy gut bacteria influence inflammation. Healthy mitochondria affect energy production. Everything communicates, everything interacts. And that interconnected nature may explain why lifestyle choices often produce widespread effects rather than isolated ones. But researchers didn't stop there. They began asking whether the timing of healthy habits mattered just as much as the habits themselves. Many people assume that healthy aging begins sometime in their 60s or 70s. The evidence suggests otherwise. The biological processes associated with aging unfold gradually across decades. The choices made in your 40s may influence your health in your 60s. The habits built in your 50s may shape your independence in your 80s. That doesn't mean it's ever too late to make positive changes. Quite the opposite. Studies consistently show that adopting healthier behaviors later in life is still associated with meaningful improvements in overall health and quality of life. Your body remains remarkably adaptable. Scientists refer to this adaptability as plasticity. Cells constantly repair damage. Proteins are continuously recycled. Bones remodel themselves. Muscles respond to training. Blood vessels adapt to activity. Even the brain retains an impressive capacity for learning and change throughout much of life. Healthy aging isn't about preventing every biological change. It's about supporting the body's remarkable ability to adapt. This perspective is empowering because it shifts the focus away from perfection. Instead of searching for the single best food, the perfect supplement, or the newest trend, researchers increasingly encourage sustainable habits that people can maintain for years. So what might that look like in everyday life? Imagine beginning the morning with plain yogurt or oatmeal topped with fresh or frozen berries, nuts, and seeds. At lunch, your meal includes colorful vegetables, beans, whole grains, and a source of lean protein. Later in the day, instead of reaching for a heavily processed snack, You enjoy a handful of berries paired with unsalted nuts. These choices may seem modest, yet over months and years, they contribute to an eating pattern consistently associated with better long term health outcomes. Another advantage is accessibility. Fresh berries are wonderful when they're in season, but frozen berries are often just as nutritious because they're typically frozen soon after harvest. In many cases, freezing preserves much of their nutritional value, making them an affordable and convenient option throughout the year. That means healthy choices don't have to depend on expensive specialty products. Sometimes the most effective strategies are also the simplest. Of course, berries are only one piece of the longevity puzzle. Nutrition works best when combined with other evidence based habits. Regular physical activity helps maintain muscle mass, cardiovascular health, insulin sensitivity, and bone strength. Resistance training becomes especially important as we age because muscle plays a vital role in mobility, balance, and metabolic health. Quality sleep allows the brain and body to perform critical repair processes. Chronic stress management supports healthy immune function and emotional well being. Meaningful relationships contribute to resilience and healthy aging in ways scientists are still working to fully understand. When these habits reinforce one another, their combined effect may be greater than any single intervention alone. And this leads to one final misconception. Many people believe longevity is simply about adding more years to life. Researchers studying healthy aging often emphasize a different goal: adding more life to those years. Living longer matters. Living well matters even more. Maintaining the ability to think clearly, walk confidently, remain independent, enjoy family, travel, learn new skills, play with grandchildren, continue doing the activities that give life meaning. These are the outcomes that inspire much of today's longevity research. Food alone cannot guarantee them. No single ingredient can eliminate every risk. Genetics, environment, healthcare access, physical activity, sleep, and many other factors all play important roles. But nutrition remains one of the most consistent daily opportunities we have to influence long term health. Every meal is a chance to provide the body with building blocks for maintenance and repair. Every colorful plate represents thousands of naturally occurring compounds interacting with systems scientists are still discovering. Among those foods, berries continue to stand out because they combine fiber, vitamins, minerals, and an extraordinary diversity of polyphenols into one simple package. That doesn't make them magical, it makes them scientifically interesting. As research continues, scientists will undoubtedly uncover even more about how food communicates with our biology. The field of nutritional science is evolving rapidly, and many questions remain unanswered. Future studies will help clarify which dietary patterns work best for different individuals and how genetics, the microbiome, and lifestyle interact over a lifetime. But one lesson has already become remarkably clear. Healthy aging is rarely the result of dramatic changes. It's usually built through ordinary decisions repeated consistently. Choosing whole foods more often, moving your body regularly, prioritizing sleep, managing stress, staying socially connected, and filling your plate with colorful, minimally processed foods that research consistently associates with better long term health. Berries may not stop time, they may not erase aging, and they certainly aren't a substitute for medical care or an overall healthy lifestyle. But evidence suggests they can be one valuable part of a dietary pattern that supports healthy aging, metabolic health, cardiovascular function, brain health, and balanced immune activity. Sometimes the most powerful health strategies aren't revolutionary at all. They're remarkably simple: a bowl of colorful fruit, a nourishing breakfast, a daily walk, a good night's sleep, one healthy decision followed by another, then another, until those decisions become habits, and those habits become the foundation of a healthier future. The decisions we make today may seem small, but over years and decades, those choices can shape how we age, how we feel, and how long we remain healthy. That's why understanding the science matters.